Okay, so in this first part of the blend shape tutorial, we're going to go ahead and start making our brow shapes, and we'll simply do this, or I'll simply do this by selecting parts of the face machine rig there and pose the character that way. This way it's actually going to be much faster than simply just duplicating the geometry and then editing the mesh that way. Doing it this way, it's going to save us a lot of time, and there's really no sense to basically duplicate the mesh and start editing the geometry. I might as well just pose it the way that I want here and then create the blend shapes that way, instead of duplicating the mesh and editing the geometry or going into ZBrush, which I'll probably do in a later lesson, but I'm not 100% sure right now. And you can do that as well, but you just have to be careful of if you add subdivision levels to the model. But for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and continue to make my brow shapes here, and I'm just doing this based off of a photo that I've actually found on Google. Though in production environments, you'll be I don't want to say given specific blend shapes that you'll have to make. Sometimes you just have to go with it, and there are a standard set of blend shapes with your F shape, your M shape, your L shape, your A shape, your U shape. And it just it just comes and goes, and you just have to basically figure out how your character should actually be moving and animating. And I'll just continue to make our blend shapes here, and you'll see me add them to a layer so I can keep track of them. I won't delete them just in case I have to actually edit them later. But for right now, we'll just make our brow shapes here and make sure I rename them as such. It just takes a little bit of time to go ahead and do correctly. And then we'll also make a facial GUI to basically make our connections here. But as you can see, there's actually a lot of control inside of the face machine, which is awesome. It's already an animatable rig, and where you can just set keys and animate it that way. But I'll make a facial GUI so it's actually going to be easier for us to go ahead and animate. A little bit easier to animate. I'm just going to continue to make my blend shapes here. I mean, there's nothing real secret about it. It's just just basically move the control points and move the rig control curves to get it in the shape that you want, and then just go ahead and make the blend shapes. It's all just a little bit extra modeling is all. And I continually rename shapes, and as you can see, I have them separated there in two different rows, and this is because I plan to basically put them on two different blend shape sliders. One being one set of blend shapes and the other being something for completely different. And that's where organization really comes into play, and it's really where organization is definitely a high priority. It just takes a little bit of time to basically just keep organized and get everything where you want it, and how you want it placed and how you want it to be controlled. That's where rigging is definitely a huge part of the CG process, because rigging is I don't really want to say it's complex. It's just more or less time consuming and basically troubleshooting. And very technical, especially if you want to rig something. I don't want to say as complex as this Voodoo doll, because this Voodoo doll is fairly simple in terms of geometric shape or geometry in terms of total geometry, so it's not real difficult to rig. But if you're rigging something like a transformer or something, it's going to be very difficult. very time consuming. I'll try to get our anger shape here. And like I said, the key here is just basically, you know, getting the shape that you want correctly. Getting it to look right, and basically just getting it to fit with the character properly. And it just has to capture that the attitude of the character. And it's your job basically as a modeler well, it's basically the modeler's job to make the blend shapes, you know, look correctly. The riggers really don't do that unless they can model. Riggers, you know, specifically do the rigging. The modelers will do, you know, not only the character, but they'll do the blend shapes as well. Well, at least in my case, I do. We'll go ahead and get our sad shape in here and rename it as such. And once I actually duplicate the mesh, I'm just unlocking the translate channel so that I can move it over. No sense to unlock the rotate and the scale, since we won't be rotating the model or scaling the blend shapes. And as you can see, I just simply, you know, set them all back to 0, and then, you know, basically make a new blend shape, and then go from there. In some cases, though, I mean, I won't reset all of the control channels, or all the channels in the control box or the attribute box there, or the channel box. But in some cases I do, some cases I don't, and this is because it just try to basically save myself some time in terms of, you know, if the look looks similar to another look, then I, you know, don't actually have to change it, but sometimes you do. And it's all just being proficient in terms of, you know, getting your blend shape out fast enough and in the correct shape. And when we go ahead and actually attach all of our blend shapes, this will be a pretty fun character to go ahead and animate. Which is definitely not something I'll be doing because I'm not an animator. I'm more or less a modeler, texture guy, sculptor. I wouldn't really consider myself a rigger, even though it is a rigging tut, but I don't really consider myself a rigger. That's sort of ironic. this is just basically, you know, you gotta have fun with it and try to get the looks that you want. It's basically, you know, all it really is. The mouth shapes will be a little bit different, a little bit more complex and a little bit harder to actually create. It's definitely where you have to do a lot of, you know, research on Google or research on the internet and basically just look at other people's rigs and try and get the shapes that are really supposed to be in there to try and capture the performance of the character. An animator can really only do so much, and he's not really only going to be as good as the rig is. So, you know, if you're trying to rig a character, you basically want to, you know, try to capture more than what he's actually going to need. This way he has a little bit extra control in terms of, you know, trying to get the performance in there that he's going to need to get his story across, or the performance across. Or, I mean, you can always, you know, take and just put a mirror on your desktop and basically just, you know, make the blend shapes off of, you know, poses of yourself. I mean, that does help too. But usually you can just, you know, basically find, you know, what you need on the internet and through Google or through Yahoo. In terms of reference pictures. We'll just try and make our last of our brow shapes here. And I mean, I think we have enough there. That should be good. And in the next lesson we'll start doing some more of the blend shapes.